This is your daily briefing. You're most welcome to it. I think before we go anywhere else, we need to talk about Harry Kane. Sky Sports have come out this week and they believe that Harry's future is going to be on hold this summer, and they're not even going to entertain bids, and they'll look at it perhaps in the following January. I take a view that Daniel Levy will be late to his own funeral. This is the beginning of the club beginning to batten down the hatches. I think they will take a view that in respect of Manchester City's supposed advances, they kind of got away with it, and perhaps Manchester United might give them a better run for their money. Truth is, I don't think anybody really knows what's going on. What we do know, and I don't mean this in an unkind way, but more of a sort of statement of fact, is Harry Kane is kith and kin. We're not dealing with the sharpest knives in the drawer, and it could be a question of that this thing just sort of drifts and drifts and drifts. Levy knows how to play the game. He's a master of it, and as far as Kane goes, my gut feeling is that all this talk about he wants to score billions of goals, he wants to be the kid in the playground with more marbles than anybody else, that's true. I think silverware, I think he'd absolutely love to lift some silverware, but the reality is, for me, I can see him dying in a Spurs shirt. Simon Jordan has fallen out of bed again, nurse. Listen, I like Jordan, I think he talks a lot of sense, but when he talks about corporate stuff, he goes so on message, it hurts. And he's come out with this line about Daniel Levy, says that he had ambition on the managerial side, and if Tottenham had no ambition, why would they have brought in Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte? Yeah, well, the trouble is, and we're going to go through this again, it's this inability of the press to tell the right story. They have this narrative about, we don't know, but it looks a bit funny from where we're sitting. And the reality is, football is not what Spurs are about. So they bring in these guys that are kind of box office names, and I've said it to you in the last tape, and I apologise for repeating it all again, but Nuno, Jose and Antonio, these guys all play the same class of football. So when it goes wrong, which it will inevitably go wrong because they will be interfered with within inches of their lives, all these punts and all the rest of it that Levy brings in, when it goes wrong, he can come out and say, well, we want to play fast, free-flowing, attacking football. Well, you hired them, mate. And speaking of the football press being completely out of touch on occasion, in respect of Manchester United and Kane, Mark Ogden of ESPN says, having dealt with Levy in the past, they don't want to go through the nightmare all over again for Kane, so they might not even get involved. Okay, at face value, okay. But the reality is that there's nobody still in office at Manchester United that was in office when we last did business with them. Absolute nonsense. One journalist who is bucking the trend and daring to say what's actually happening is Jason Burt, The Telegraph. Quote here, there really does appear to be not just a collective loss of faith in Levy, but also a sustained anger towards the chairman, who has painted himself into a corner. I think Bert's read the room very well here. Who in the right mind is going to volunteer to participate in this fiasco next? And that's why I said to you, we're going to get this scenario where we get a blank canvas manager come forward. Trust me, I tell you, that guy's on his way. Speaking of Daniel Levy, David Ornstein of The Athletic is in a playful mood, perhaps, telling us that Antonio Conte's position at Spurs hasn't come to a head internally yet because, ... Daniel Levy has been too busy attending to various on-field and off-field matters. Antonio Conte put the cat amongst the pigeons in his last presser, saying that the patience of the fans has finished. And we feel this, I feel this, the players feel this. And this was portrayed by some thick people as Conte having a dig at the fans, which of course it wasn't. It was just him pointing out that his tenure at Spurs has just been another chapter in a series of unsuccessful chapters under the great Daniel Levy. And one journalist who was trying to pass off Conte's words as a pop at the fans was, of course, Tom Barkley from The Sun. Well, who's he? Well, he's the same guy that told us the Tottenham board was furious that Spurs hadn't shown greater desire in a domestic trophy. Hang on a minute, isn't this the club that sacked a manager 6 days before a domestic cup final? I don't know if it's with every single football club or it's just something peculiar to Spurs that we have such bad journalistic coverage. But we've got Gary Jacob here making points, and it's doubled down on by being then formed into a tweet put out by the Last Word on Spurs. And let's just run through this. Daniel Levy's problems. I'll put this up so you can see all the silly emoticon things. Finding the right manager to replace Conte. Okay, yeah, great. I wasn't aware of that. Kane entering the final year of his contract. You got a point. I mean, it's well overdue. Finding investment to compete with rivals. Prepared to spend big. Securing a naming rights deal. Naming rights, I think everybody's had enough of the naming rights discussion, don't you? I mean, it's money, but it's not football. It's nothing to do with the football. And as we've seen from all the other money that's been flooding in over, and don't worry about the NFL and all that other rubbish, the pop concerts, 100 million for every home game, and yet we're scrabbling around and being linked with absolute dross in the markets. But finding investment to compete with rivals, prepared to spend big. And why would you compose a tweet and share that with the fan base? It's absolutely disgraceful. We're number 8 or 9 or whatever. I think we're number 8 in the Deloitte Darling top 10 earning clubs in the world. Finding investment. Desperate, absolutely desperate. More on Conte. My old mucker OneDaveMackay got in touch this week and suggested I might look to 2020. The gaffer Antonio Conte was caught up in a London-based investment scam whilst he was at Chelsea. It's a convoluted tale where Conman claimed to have an involvement with HSBC. It was all fake, it was all baloney, and Tony lost £27 million, according to numerous reports. It may have been a factor when Conte said no thanks and then came back and said, well, actually, yeah, I'll take it. And the other thing with Tony that we need to get our heads wrapped around is this is a guy in his 50s. And let me tell you from experience, you hit 50 and the funeral invitations start arriving and you can't remember the last time you went to a birthday. It's all part and parcel of the cycle. So this business that he's in this sort of destitute place where there's just grief and everybody's dropping like flies. You get old, that's what happens. Which brings us neatly onto the business of that. Well, he's not living with his wife, she stayed in Italy. Yeah, she stayed in Italy because they've got kids and they're settled and it's called a family. Many of you won't know what I'm talking about. But Tony, he's living in a hotel room. Yeah, I get that. But he's not staying in a Premier Inn. He's not staying in room 4 at Fawlty Towers, sharing the bathroom with 4 other families. Grow up. And I'll just throw this in because I noticed it this morning. I've bemoaned the quality of football in England's top flight this season, but nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to discuss it. Broadcasters are telling you it's competitive and really exciting, but it isn't. And that's one of the reasons that I'm not averse to a European Super League when it's been structured correctly and put out properly by a grown-up. But the point I'm making here is if you look at the table now, only 5 points separate the team in 12th from the team in 20th place. Absolutely shocking. And to close, a couple of comedy items, and I've got to tell you, these are some of the best we've ever had. Harry Winks, some of you will know the quote already. I feel indebted to Sampdoria. If I had been available from the start, I would have given my all. The club has always supported me. It was important for my ankle to fully heal. No one from Spurs has contacted me. Not even the coach. I'm fully focused on Sampdoria. Yeah, nobody cares, mate. You're rubbish. That's the problem. And I don't mean to be awful to you, but hopefully the pennies dropped, and when you finished at Sampdoria, you can retire and go and open a golf world somewhere. Not interested. This is the killer of killers, Dele Alli. Besiktas, his time in the sun of Turkey is over. Besiktas boss Senor Gunes says that he will be benched for the rest of the season until he goes back to Everton. And I've got to tell you, I've already seen a couple of tweets this morning from Tottenham fans saying, oh, so he's coming back in. Yes, to the team we sold him to. That's it for now. Good luck. Keep it Tottenham.